Have you been wondering whether you should homeschool your kids or not? Well, today I'm going to share with you my pros and cons and answer some of the questions that may be hindering your decision. Stick around. It's Veronica here from Aussies Do Down Under Homeschool Season, and today we're going to be going over some of those questions you might ask yourself when trying to decide whether to homeschool your kids. I'm going to see whether they're a pro or a con, or maybe they're a little bit of both. Now, just before I do, if you have not subscribed yet and you think you might want to, please hit that subscribe button and the little bell which will notify you every time I put up a new video. Now let's start. So what I find is that when I first tried to decide whether I was going to homeschool, I realized that I had a lot of questions going around in my brain. Most of the questions were designed to actually turn myself off the idea, I noticed. Now, you may be one of those people who knows from the moment your child is born that you want to homeschool. But if you're not and you're anything like me, you are sort of thrust into this idea and it starts really setting itself in there quite a while before you actually decide to start homeschooling. So today I'm going to share with you some of the questions that I had running around my brain, and I'm going to answer them as someone who has already started homeschool, has been homeschooling for a little while but not a long while, and hopefully help you to make that decision and help you debunk some of those fears that you may be feeling when you're coming to your own decision. So I know that one of the first questions I asked myself when I started to think about homeschooling was, can I do it? Can I do it? Can I homeschool my children? Am I qualified to do this? Well, the good news is you do not need to be qualified to homeschool your kids. You already are as a parent. Remember, you've been teaching your kids a lot of things prior to school, and school is just the next step in their learning process. Anyone can teach their kids at home. You do not need to be a qualified teacher. Of course, they've got all the tricks and they know all the ways of controlling 30 or so children, but you've only got a few kids to worry about, so you're not going to need those tricks. What you do need is a desire to see your children flourish and become brilliant learners. Or at least try. One of the things I realized is that it doesn't have to be all on you. And I have said this before, but I will say it again. If you are not a confident teacher to your own children, don't feel like you can't do it because you're not. I'm dyslexic just like my kids. So I also thought, I can't do this. I wasn't that great at school when I was there. I found certain things really hard and other things really easy. I don't remember a lot of things. How do I teach my children? But the thing is that just giving them the information, showing them, guiding them through is sometimes enough. If you are not confident at teaching your children and you don't want to think of curriculums and you don't want to think of ideas and you don't want to put things together, just buy a ready-made curriculum. You can get them online, you can get them in packs. If you're not confident, there is a way to teach them. Now, if you are confident, obviously you're going to have a lot more fun at designing your own curriculums if you're allowed to legally in your area. So please check that, and I'll put a link to another video that will help you work out how to find your authority and work out whether you're allowed to or not. But if you are allowed to, then you can have all the resources at your disposal and you can make whatever curriculum you like. So I find this a pro because everyone can teach their children. Like I said, if you're a little bit nervous about teaching them, just buy a curriculum. And of course it's a pro if you want to make your own curriculum because the sky's the limit. So the second question you may be asking yourself is, do I have the time? Now, this can be a pro and a con. If you have a lot of time, you're not working, then yes, of course you're going to have the time. This is going to be a pro because it's just going to add to that and you're going to spend all this time with your kids and it's great. If you are, on the other hand, a working mum, you're working outside of the house, maybe 8 hours a day, in a position that you can't really take your child along with you and have them sitting next to you working on their schoolwork, it's going to be a lot harder. So it could be a con. For me, I was lucky enough that I could actually work from home, so that helped a lot. But in saying that, I did have to give up a lot of my legal side of my work, and I had to give that time now to my children. I was lucky enough to be in a position where I can do that. And the other work that I do that from home. So albeit I'm stretched thin for time, I can still manage and I can still find the time to help teach my children as well. I just have to juggle a few things along the way. Now, this is not going to be as easy for everyone, but if you can make certain changes, then time shouldn't be a factor. You will find certain things hard. Is it going to be easy? Probably not. But I find that sometimes when you feel like you need to do something, then you'll find the time to do it. I think it's a matter of just trying to find a way. Like I said, it's not going to be for everybody, so this can definitely be a pro and a con. Okay, the next question I particularly kept asking myself was, do I have the patience? Do I have the patience? Do I have the... Look, you might be one of those people who is super patient with their kids and you're gentle, and I know I've got a couple of friends who are like that and I'm so jealous sometimes. I always thought I would never have the patience to homeschool my kids, and I know there's a lot of you out there who probably feel the same way sometimes, and maybe that's the one thing that's stopping you from doing it. I'm here to tell you that you do not need to be a patient person when you start, because part of homeschooling your own children is they will teach you patience. You will learn patience and you will thank them for it in the end. I was one of those people who, if my kids were doing their homework, and before I knew my daughter was dyslexic, I was the worst, yeah? She would read a word on one page of a book, turn the page, that same word was on the next page and she didn't know it, and I would just get so frustrated. Now I feel like a bit of a heel of a parent because I did get impatient with her, and it wasn't her fault. She's dyslexic, so that was just part of being dyslexic. Now, given a better understanding of her needs, her weaknesses, and the things that she finds hard when she's learning something, that's taught me patience. You know, I'm far more equipped now because I have a better understanding, and I have a better understanding because I am homeschooling them. So I get to see firsthand where they're finding it hard, where they're struggling, and I get a better sense of understanding on what they're going through because I can see it in action, and that helps me to be patient with them. I got to thank them because they've given me that opportunity to learn, and I may never have learnt if they hadn't have been homeschooled. So that for me is definitely a pro, because before this, I was not a patient person. Now, I'm not 100% patient. I still have my moments, don't worry. And I have to remind myself that I can learn patience, but it's definitely made me a patient person, so definitely a pro. Okay, so the next thing I used to ask myself is, how do I provide all those extra things that school provides? And what I mean by that is the sporting activities, the computer activities, the art, music, all those other sort of extracurricular activities that they do. Now, again, I have mentioned this in another video, and I will put a link somewhere here again to that video with my extracurricular fun, but you can outsource that stuff. So you might have already got your child in a sport on a Saturday morning. Tick, there's your sport. You may have your child participating in the local choir. These things are available to you, and it's just a matter of Googling in your area and finding what's available, and also looking up your actual community. You'll have a smaller community around your area, and they offer a lot of things that you probably weren't aware of. So look into that, especially on school holidays. They'll have activities involved, and your local library will have activities for the children as well, which is also handy for IT or computer-based programs. If you don't have the facilities at home to have your child on the computer, you can go to your local library, and I've noticed in my particular community, they have school holiday activities for the kids, and they'll go and learn coding and that sort of thing, and that's free of charge. Basically, you just need to be a member of the library. So there are resources out there that are free for you, and if you have the funds to pay for a few of them, then the sky's the limit when it comes to extracurricular. You can join coding groups for kids. They're not just school-based, they're also community-based coding groups. I know my kids do it via like a Skype scenario where they are just talking to their teacher. They're called Coding Kids, and I'll put a link to their website down below as well. I'm not affiliated with any of these people, by the way, so everything I give you is just from my own experience and what I'm doing for my children. So it may or may not suit you, but I'll give you the information. It's yours to do with what you want to. Now, also, if you want to teach your child a language and you don't have any language like myself, I don't know anything but English, so you can learn things online for free. So you can just Google, learn Spanish, learn Chinese, whatever you want to learn. Or teach your children. There's a lot of free resources out there, or you could go to a language school. They're out there as well. We went to one, but we had to recently start doing it at home. There are opportunities to learn things without spending too much cash, and a lot of those are to do with online. So if you don't have a computer at home, again, go to your local library. You can spend a couple of hours there working on the computers there. You can do a lot of things. If you want to learn IT or coding for your kid, you can get out one of those, those how-to coding for beginners kind of books. I think they've got a Scratch one, and there's another one. I'm trying to think of the name of it. You can actually use those books, borrow them from the library, take them home, and that your child can do it at home if you have that facility at home, or you can do it in the library, and they can just go through and do the exercises and pretty much teach them self-coding as much as they're going to need at this level. And then as you progress, you've got to see where their interests lie anyway, and then you'll know whether you need to put a bit more investment into that particular subject or not. As far as arts go, I mean, you can study an artist or an artist's work, again, through the library or online, and your child can be recreating those artworks. You can learn the color chart, you can learn all these different artistic things, and all those can be done at home as well. But if you do have the funds, you can send your child to an art class after school. Most of them are after school anyway, so it's really no different than if they were at school. So what I'm trying to say is all those resources are available to you. You don't need to be at school for your child to be participating in all of these resources. You just need to do a bit of research in your local area to find what's available, what you can afford, and what you're prepared to go with. So for me, this is definitely a pro, because I can really, let my children explore whatever they want to. I'm not limited to what the school is offering. So pro. Okay, so I don't want you to think that everything's a pro and it's all hunky-dory. And did I just say hunky-dory? That's a bit weird. I want to be real and let you know that it's not all rainbows and sunshine all the time with homeschooling, and it's not just perfect and everything's easy. It's not easy. There's a lot of research, there's a lot of hard work in certain areas, and if there isn't, more power to you. I wish I was you, but there, 9 times out of 10, you're going to have times in your homeschool that you're going to want to A, pull your hair out, B, quit. Many a time, and it's usually that first week of the term, I'm giving my kids the speech. The one where there's a state school down the road. You're quite welcome to go there if you don't want to actually work for me at home. It usually kind of works, and we then settle into the term, but it's not always going to be easy to be a homeschool parent. It's not. And there's definitely cons. One I can think of straight away is time. You no longer have the freedom of time to do what you want to do. So before, if the child was at school, you had, 6 hours that they're at school of you time, whether you took that working, shopping, I don't know, looking after your younger children, being a lady of leisure or a man of leisure. I don't know what you were doing with it, but you had it. You had that 6 hours if they were at school. You no longer have that. Now, if you're anything like me and most of the family, your extended family, are in other states, you don't have that family network to sort of help take the pressure off you a little bit. So you are with your kids 24/7, which for some is awesome. Great, couldn't think of anything better. But for some of us, it's a bit daunting when they first start homeschooling. It's like, oh my gosh, they're there all the time wanting something from you like kids do. You lose that 6 hours. I can't go and have a coffee with my friends anymore. Not that I did that very often, but I can't. I take my kids when I have to go and get waxed. They're coming, yeah, because I have no one to give them to. So you need to be prepared. If you're the type of person who likes that 6 hours, don't homeschool. But at the same time, I've really got to connect with my kids in a way that I never did before. And that's one of the pros. You get to connect in a way that you would never do if they were at school for that 6 hours. I've learned things about my children that I never would have learned. I learned things about the way they struggle at school that I never would have learned. I spend all that time advocating for them, definitely, but never really understanding that core issue that was behind it and never seeing it for myself. A teacher would say, hey, your child's dealing with this or having trouble with that or needs this or needs that. And I'm always, I've got to give this to them. I've got to find it. I've got to outsource this thing. And, always stressing about what you need to do. Now I get to sort of understand it more. I get to look into it. I get to research it, envelop myself in their learning so that I get a really good understanding of where they need me to help them and where they blossom, where they shine. And this for me is definitely a pro, because although sometimes I want to pull my hair out because I'm spending 24/7 with them, at other times I just look at them and I think, wow, I never would have had this kind of relationship with them if they were at school for that 6 hours. So that's a pro. It's definitely a pro. And you know what? Another pro that follows on from that one is the fact that I get to see my kids prosper in their learning process. I get to see them jumping hurdles. I get to see something that was kind of hard for them, then not be hard for them. I get to see them progress as a student and know that somehow I had something to do with that I helped. I helped them gain that confidence. I helped them learn that difficult task. And that is a reward that you cannot get from sending them off to school for someone else to do. So that is another pro. So I suppose there's not many cons in my opinion. I'm sure that there's people out there who can think of a lot more. But for me, that's where it sits. I don't see a lot of cons. I see a lot of pros. I find challenges in the pros, but not enough to be a con, if you know what I mean. So I hope it helps with your decision. And the reason why I put this video together was to help you sort of get rid of some of those fears, answer some of those questions that you might be asking yourself, and hopefully show you that it's not as bad as what you're thinking, and that it can be really super rewarding as well. So those little things that you have to do, maybe give up work like I did, or swap things around, or juggle the world a little bit differently, they can also be pros as well when you see that reward at the end of it. Okay, so I hope that me sharing these pros and cons and answers to your questions has helped you in the decision that you're making, or if you've already made the decision, maybe you just needed someone to sort of pep you up because you're having a down day. I know I've had them before and I've thought, oh, what am I doing? Am I making the right decision by doing this? And I'm sure I'll have more of those days, but at the end of the day, the pros outweigh the cons for me. And I'm hoping that my sharing this information will help you make a more informed decision. I might have just really reiterated the fact why you don't want to homeschool now. And that's okay too, because I'd hate you to spend all that money or time preparing and then find out you really weren't suited to it. So that's a win-win for me. If you like this video and you want to see more, please hit the like button. And if you haven't subscribed yet, please consider subscribing. I am loving getting to meet all of you. Thank you to all my new subscribers, and thanks to everybody, and I will see you next week. See you guys.